Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we are here live at the World Trade Center for a multi-state operator panel. Today, my guests include Wes Abney, Justin Ruiz, Jerry Derevyanny, and Kacie Morrissey. Wes is the mad genius behind the Northwest Leaf, a cannabis magazine prioritizing the patient's voice. Co-founded in Seattle in 2010, they celebrated their 100th issue last October, and they'll celebrate their 9th anniversary next month in June. Northwest Leaf, Oregon Leaf, and Alaska Leaf are monthly magazines that cover cannabis from every angle. The magazine has been a leader in providing high-quality journalism, photography, and a web hub for both the recreational and medicinal marijuana community. In July of 2014, Wes expanded with the Oregon Leaf, and in 2016 launched Alaska Leaf, then recently expanded to the East Coast with the Maryland Leaf. Wes is also the co-host of the Leaf Life podcast, as well as a cannabis producer-processor in Washington, Alaska, Oregon, and Nevada, with access to over 1,000-store distribution channel, making cannabis-infused edibles called Leafchews and a medical version called Leafchews. Next up is Justin Ruiz, owner of Hypeherbally Cannabis Shop. Justin has been heavily involved in the cannabis space since 1999 when he got involved with HempFest, first as a fellow protester, and then he began supporting the event through vending in 2007. In 2011, Justin established Hypeherbally, a medical marijuana dispensary, recently reopened as a 21 and over licensed cannabis rec shop. Justin is proud to have helped pioneer the Washington cannabis industry as we know it today, and has been busy creating a lifestyle brand around Hypeherbally, named #1 name in Washington State by the Seattle Times. Last year, Justin and Wes launched a shuttle tour service together called Higher Than a Space Shuttle. Justin, thanks for coming on board. From New York commercial litigator to general counsel of the largest recreational company in Washington State, Jerry Derevyanny is the executive vice president of corporate development and director of Cannex Capital Group. Cannex was founded in 2017 and is managed by a team of experienced industry and capital markets experts who are committed to aggressive, cost-effective growth. Cannex facilitates growth through cash flow from operations, strategic acquisitions, partnerships, and by leveraging the expertise of its experienced operational team. Cannex provides a range of comprehensive and flexible growth options for licensed cannabis cultivators, processors, and or rec shops domestically and internationally, including providing turnkey real estate with operational infrastructure as well as long-term advisory and consulting services. Cannex is a publicly traded company listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol CNNX. And remotely, today we have Kacie Morrissey with us. She's the Director of Industry Analytics at New Frontier Data. Educated as an engineer with experience in institutional asset management, Morrissey brings a unique blend of technical analytical abilities, intuitive market awareness, and a high-level understanding of institutional risk management to the cannabis industry. Since joining New Frontier Data in 2015, she's developed economic models to produce some of the most accurate and widely quoted industry market projections in the legal cannabis industry, as well as produce the first preliminary analysis of global cannabis demand. Prior to joining New Frontier, Morrissey was the senior investment analyst at the Hershey Trust company, where she was responsible for public and private equity investment, due diligence, and analysis for the Trust's $12 billion investment portfolio. Today's multi-state operator panel is hosted at the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center in Tacoma grows trade and investment by providing direct access to the largest business network in the world with 300 offices in 99 countries. The World Trade Center in Tacoma is the lone trade service for the Pacific Northwest. The seminars, award ceremonies, and conferences can generate contacts and contracts. Trade research can clarify opportunities, and their matchmaking can turn those opportunities into trade. The e-commerce export store has partnered with Alibaba and is translated into 18 languages with about 40,000 unique visitors every month, giving your product an opportunity to be seen globally. According to some New Frontier data, it looks like the opportunities is still in Canada. Big alcohol and tobacco accounted for nearly half of 2018's total cannabis investment at $13.8 billion. So they might know something that other investors don't. So Jerry, over 40% of cannabis business owners surveyed in October of 2017 were planning to take their companies into a new market within the next year, according to the Marijuana Business Daily, yet limits on the number of available licenses, a lack of access to capital, and the logistic hurdles of operating a business in accordance with various state and local regulations are all likely to contribute to the relatively low percentage of business owners who actually take their companies into those new markets. So there's clearly a delta between the perception and reality. And I want to know, I'm curious about ultimately what's stopping these businesses from making that expansion.
I think it's a lot of those reasons that you named are the exact same reasons as a typical business would have trouble expanding, right? Access to capital, just a lot of these businesses. So I think there's a really big difference between expanding and scaling that people often don't appreciate. So you can expand restaurants, right? You can make 1 restaurant, 2 restaurants, 3 restaurants. There's some economies of scale, but a lot of stuff you have to redo. The problem in cannabis is basically every state might as well be a different country. You have to repeat everything that you're doing in every new state with different permutations, adaptions. There's a huge regulatory layer that you have to deal with. I think a lot of those people are just going to run into those kinds of problems, and they realize that it's not as easy as all that to go into that next market, because that next market contains a whole different set of land use laws, a whole different set of stakeholders to deal with. You have to hire new people. It's really difficult. I would say one of the ways that a lot of people could potentially do it in a different way is, as these multi-state operators develop, you will, I think, start to see those that have solid operational underpinnings, those that can actually execute versus those that have assembled a lot of licenses and they're trying to backfill their abilities a little bit. And to some extent, it's going to be a big opportunity, I think, for some of the smaller undercapitalized players to basically say, okay, I'm going to hitch my star to this bigger company that on a good, fair deal, and be able to expand my brand that way, or else I don't really have the capability of expanding it and bringing it to more people. I think you will end up seeing, and I certainly think that the Cannex Forefront combination is going to be one of those platforms eventually where you will be able to get an authentic, we are going to have a collection of very authentic brands that we brought to a lot of different states, starting with the ones that were developed in Washington.
And I would say, that is the choice to make, is can a company actively scale on their own? And I think that there's a lot of high hopes in cannabis and a lot of potentially inflated evaluations, inflated revenue goals, and a lack of understanding that this is an agricultural product on, not necessarily a race to the bottom, but on a race to scale in terms of production. And a lot of people still view cannabis as an illegal drug or a semi-illegal drug with values that were based on the black market or gray market. But once this is fully legal, it is a weed. It grows like a weed. It grows relatively easy, especially when it's being produced for biomass purposes. And so someday cannabis is going to be very cheap. As Justin always likes to say, it's going to be just like hops. Hops is only worth so much money. It's still a multi-billion-dollar industry, but where hops becomes valuable is when it's turned into something. And at a certain level, cannabis is just an agricultural commodity. And I think that's the most important thing for people to remember. And when you're going into new markets and thinking about replicating success and putting, large amounts of money on the line, when you're selling pot at $1 or $2 a gram, it takes a lot of biomass to be able to make back those initial investments. And I really like that analogy of scale versus expansion, because a lot of companies aren't really thinking about where they're going to actually end up and the bottom line of what they actually need to make to return their investments.
I feel like that goes along with a lot of dreams that were being sold to a lot of these people who are initially trying to get into the industry. And so now that that's known, we're trying to get down to this common price point for the country, but yet still there's people kind of traveling back in time who are able to start from that point that we were able to. And if you look back at how even our rec industry price point started, it was really ridiculous at the beginning, and then it quickly got snapped into reality. And I think some others wheels got turning because there was a lot of the blind leading the blind selling dreams, and it's those same guys who were selling dreams. They're essentially the guys selling the shovels and the sifters to the gold rush, and they made out good.
Yeah, I do remember the Botech report that said that we were going to be selling wholesale $6 a gram in Washington State. Apparently, that turned out to be inaccurate, as we all know. I actually wanted to throw back to something Kacey said. I think one of the things that we talk about, but I don't think fully appreciate, is the size of the potential market. And I'm certainly not advocating that every single person go out and start using cannabis, but you have to realize that like 42% of adults in the United States will use alcohol at some point in the last month. Number's about 14%. So you have this big percentage of people that are totally okay with one kind of intoxicant, right? that have yet to try marijuana or don't regularly use it. And the kinds of products, we don't really even know the kinds of products that are going to be appealing to those people. Wellness products, a lot of, I think, one of the companies that Cannex is buying right now is a company in California called Pure Ratios. They do CBD and THC patches as their main product, but they have a lot of other salves and something like that with Ayurvedic medicine, and it's run by a practitioner, like a guy that's been doing Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese medicine for 20 years, recognized leader in the space. Maybe that kind of product is going to resonate with a lot of people, and it's going to be a very broad-based product with CBD and THC. That is this exciting stuff. And to the extent that there's investment, opportunities for smaller people to get into the industry, taking a look ahead into that market, I think it's very early now, but that probably has some of the best returns that you could possibly have. And is Kacey still on the line? I do have to ask, is it the Hershey Trust, like the Hershey family, the candy family?
Hershey chocolates. So Milton Hershey and his wife couldn't have children, and they left their fortune to a school for underprivileged kids. And the $12 billion trust runs that school.
Wow. So it's like Bruce Wayne's school for the gifted?
Something like that.
Yeah. I just asked because I was a litigator in New York City, and some of the cases I worked on were for Hershey's, who are, as you might imagine, very protective of their Kisses trademark. So.
Yeah, I'm aware.
That's a great point that Jerry made. So basically, we're just thinking of this niche psychoactive market, and it's really a bubble. And if you look at even the alcohol market, which he said is another intoxicant that's widely socially acceptable. If you look at what they do, they even make candies that are flavored with alcohol with a small amount. That's trace amounts that won't get anybody intoxicated. And we can do that with terpenes and flavonoids as well. And we can take things like, so we do like think of an oxygen bar with terpene infused, and then you got all these people who don't necessarily know anything about cannabis, maybe still have that like faux pas, like real like intimidated by the whole nature of it, and then they go in and they get these different notes that they're all of a sudden obsessed with flavor wise, and then they're like, wow, their curiosity at least is piqued at that point, and then they're more understanding at the very least to what's going on. They realize it's not just about getting stoned, and then maybe they're even curious about hitting a vape pen next or something like that. But it's those people with those training wheels on could even become a psychoactive customer way down the line. But my point is, there's a market that's here that we're barely tapped on, and what Jerry was talking about, we just barely even scratched the surface, and we're looking at concentrates as the I mean, Oregon alone could, with all their really bad weed right now, they could just turn all that into terpenes for this new CBD market and essentially infuse all the CBD with natural native cannabis derived terpenes that make it an experience where you're essentially smoking everything, but you're not getting any kind of THC headache or even, compromising your job if it's still some state that's not green yet, that's not able to enjoy this.
And with that, we're out of time. I want to thank my guests for coming on. Jerry with Cannex Capital Group and Forefront, thank you. I want to thank Wes Abney of the Northwest Leaf and Leafchews. Justin, I appreciate you coming out. He's with Hypeherbally. Also, him and Wes joined up for the Higher Than a Space Shuttle. And Kacey with New Frontier Data, I appreciate you being on the line with us today.
Thanks so much.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, Kacey.
So with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is a Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.
Luxury beat.